Hi guys, I'm Andrew and I'm here today with the lovely Lou Jane, and we're going to show you how to do this gorgeous French girl Parisian inspired makeup. If you enjoy this video, like, share and subscribe. So I've already prepped Lou Jane's skin. There'll be a description of all the products that I've used to prep her skin. Now with this French girl look, it's really about minimal makeup and really about showing off your natural beauty. So it's not necessarily going to be about a full base. I will use a sort of more of a heavier coverage just to cover some redness that Lou Jane has here, but we still want to maintain that real fresh French chic look. So that's why I've used quite a dewy moisturiser for this particular look. So the base product that I'm going to use is I'm going to use the Chanel VITALUMIÈRE AQUA foundation in shades 20 and 30, and I'm going to mix them together. And I've got a little bit of this special makeup mixer, which is a bit of a makeup artisty product, but you can just use moisturiser. It's just going to thin down the product for me slightly. So just turn your head for me that way you touched on me. So as you can see, it goes on, it's very luminous, this product. It gives me just enough coverage for it to be fresh without looking too makeup-y, so to speak. I mean, you guys at home, if you want to alter this look so that you can have a little bit of a heavier coverage, you won't lose the integrity of the look, so to speak. But that French girl, that very Parisian sort of look, is definitely all about minimal makeup to maximum effect. Which is always super fun, I think, when you look like you haven't got any makeup on. Turn that over me, darling. People will just think, wow, you've got amazing skin, Lou Jane. Which is also my philosophy as a makeup artist. I know that there are some makeup artists out there that absolutely love a heavy base. I have this conversation with a lot of my friends that are makeup artists, and they love that kind of perfected and covered up, so to speak. I'm definitely more of a bit more light-handed when it comes to a base for me, personally. Now if I feel like it's getting a bit heavy, like I've just done there, I just take one of these little duo fibre brushes, and it really just sort of softens everything in. Kind of acts a little bit like a finger, really. You kind of just pushes it into the skin, kind of takes off quite a bit of what's there, but kind of leaves the coverage, which is quite nice. So it kind of takes it back. It's a good tip actually, because obviously if you find that you're trying to keep a very natural looking base, a brush like this, a duo fibre, is really good. Again, this is one of my favourite base brushes. This is that Wycon. See, look, I've had it for so long. The name's disappeared. Beautiful. Now for me, I think that's a really good place. Yeah, so I'm just literally just covering up redness, but I think for me that coverage is good. I don't really want to go any heavier than that. Because what I'll do is I'll just go in with a little bit of concealer and kind of really target the areas that I want to cover. So this is really just a very, very light layer, just a light wash. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to some concealer now, and I'm going to use the Nars Soft Matte Concealer. Now I'm going to mix a few together, just after I've tapped. Now I really like the consistency of this soft matte concealer. Again, it's very matte. So just a little bit on the chin. This is where we tend to get a bit red. Again, this is a brush from Kryolan. I've had it for years. I love it. It's a good one for concealer. I prefer a bit of a softer, fluffier brush for concealer. Unless I'm really pinpointing, like really covering a blemish, I like a flat brush that's a lot the bristles are a lot more dense rather than fluffy, and this has just got a little bit of a fluffier consistency. So I'm going to put a little bit of that just around the outsides of the nose. I'm going to take this fluffy brush. This is a Milani fluffy eyeshadow brush. I always use eyeshadow brushes for concealer. Really just buff the product in. So really just pinpointing areas where I can add a bit of light as well. It's a good thing about having a couple of colours on the go when it comes to concealer. So I've got like a medium shade, a lighter shade, and then the foundation shade, so the two concealers mixed together. I can kind of custom mix them as I'm building the skin. So if I want a little bit of light in this centre part here, all I've got to do is just mix the two lighter shades together. And I'm going to get that perfect sort of light reflection across the centre of the face from a lighter concealer. Not too far though. You don't want to go too far with this. We still want to keep the look very fresh. Whereas if I was doing a bit more of a red carpet kind of contoury look, you could push it a little bit, but not too far today. We still want to make the skin look kind of like you just got out of the shower and you've had 100 years sleep. So I'm just going to conceal under the eyes. Look up for me. This isn't a very heavy eye look, so I can do my concealer now, whereas I usually prefer to do my concealer a little bit later on, sorry. Now, Lujane is slightly blue under there, so I've mixed a little bit in with a peachier toned concealer. Look straight ahead for me, darling. Now, that's very much about colour theory, which I'm sure you guys at home know as well. Everyone's a makeup artist these days. The amount of information you can get on YouTube about how to cover an eye bag. But when you are slightly blue, a more of a peach toned concealer is going to help knock back some of those blue tones. Now you can use a colour corrector, but again, I don't want to apply too many products to the skin. So I'm trying to keep the products that I use to a minimum. So a peach tone concealer kind of will do the job for you, instead of using the corrector and a concealer. You can just use one product and it should do the trick. Yes, I'm just really blending this out, making it nice and soft. Really focusing on that kind of this well part here. And right up into that corner there, where most people forget to put concealer actually. It's a really, really overlooked area when people do their makeup, I find. Is really getting into that kind of, that right into that inner part of the socket there, which is where you want to put a little bit of concealer, not too much obviously because your eyes move around a lot. So with a look like this, we want to kind of fake it. So if you put too much product there, then it will start to crease. So don't put too much, just enough to kind of hide that blueness. Now I'm not taking this concealer all the way up to Lujane's lash line, because she's got a really gorgeous natural shadow there, and I want to use that. There is a tendency, if you go too high up into the lash line with your concealer, you can look quite tired. Whereas if you leave a little bit of a shadow there from your natural skin colour, it can look very pretty. Whereas most people, I can imagine, take their concealer all the way up to the lash line. But again, that also doesn't really help with creasing. We want to keep the majority of the product in here, whereas around here you don't want to put too much concealer because it will just crease. Hence why one of these is great as well. So you can see now we're really getting a nice lift under there. So I'm just focusing right in that inner corner with that lighter shade, just to highlight that inner corner as well, right on that triangle. Okay, so done the base. I'm quite happy with the way that it looks at the moment. It's nice and fresh, doesn't look too heavy. Again, fingers are a really good tool when you're doing a look like this, because as you put the makeup on, it can sort of take on a life of its own. So give it all a good pat in. and you'll find that it will kind of just really melt into the skin, the products that you've used, and it will just really create this synergy between the product and the skin. Yeah, good. So now I'm going to move on to do some blush. Now I'm going to use quite a reddy blush today because we're doing a reddy lipstick. Now this is a Sunnie's Face blusher. It's a Filipino brand and it's called Disco. How fun. Now it's very red, but I'm going to just use my finger and I'm just going to press a little bit just there and just on this side as well. Now, because we're doing a red lipstick, it's quite nice to have the blush and the lip in synergy with one another. I find that if you don't use blush and you use a red lipstick, you can kind of look a bit washed out. So taking the excess from the back of my hand, I'm just going to smooth that with my finger. No brush necessary. And really push that in. Using your finger will really give you that coming from within sort of look. And because this is a very chic French girl, undone sort of glamour, dare I say glamour, I'm going to pop this blush very much on the apples and a tiny sweep up, whereas if I were doing a little bit more of a contoured look, I may apply the blush slightly higher. But for this, I really want that freshness coming through, so I always find that a blush very much in this region always looks really nice. Now if you feel like you want to add a bit more, like I do, I am a bit of a blush lover, just pop it a little bit in the centre there. Blush placement is actually quite important with this kind of look, because it really does give that natural effect, and that's very much what the Parisian ethos of makeup is all about. Enhancing your own natural beauty rather than changing anything. Rather than doing a transformation, they're very much into that natural beauty feeling. Which is probably why it's such an enduring look, really. It's one of my favourite looks, I think, that very Parisian, just out for cocktails in the middle of the day in Paris. Okay, so I'm really happy with how that freshness is coming through and this blush is really popping out. So I'm just going to move on and do something really quick on the eyes, something really just to sort of give a little bit of definition there, just a bit like almost like a shadow. Now I'm going to use a cream eyeshadow that sets today, and it's a very taupey shade. This is from a brand called Douglas, and you can only get them, I think it's an Italian brand. I got it in Italy when I was there last year. Italy have got some amazing makeup brands. Now this is great because this particular shadow sets, but it goes on like a cream. So I'm just using that flat 217 again from MAC. Now I'm just pressing this, almost tapping it onto the lid, very, very sparingly, very naturally. I'm going to take a fluffier brush. This one is a Morphe M441. Now it's very dense fluffy, this one, and I'm just going to go for it. Really blend this out. I don't really want this to look like an eyeshadow. I just want it to look like it's part of Lou Jane. Almost like this is how her eyelids look naturally. Open for me, darling. You can see the difference there. Just gives you a little bit of colour without it screaming eyeshadow, but it gives you some depth. These taupey shades are always really good for that. They always look very natural if you apply them. Close your eyes for me, darling. If you apply them very sparingly. Because I'm going to put a gloss on the top of this lid later on as well, it's good to use a product that sets MAC do some really good cream eyeshadows that set. But I just particularly like this shade. And this is very cool toned. Especially on Lou Jane. This is almost like exactly what a shadow colour would look like on her skin. Open your eyes for me, darling. Okay, so I'm just going to take a little bit of this colour, just very delicately under Lou Jane's lash line. This is also going to mimic that shade that's there naturally. I just want to ramp it up a little bit. So I didn't take the concealer too high. The more smudgy with this and the more light-handed you are, the better it will feel for the overall look. Now I'm going to apply some mascara. Now I haven't curled Lou Jane's eyelashes because I don't really want them too curled. Straight ahead for me, darling. Look down here. I really want to maintain that natural look. And yes, curling the eyelashes is always great, but I think there's something quite nice about straightish eyelashes. There's something quite undone about it, which I quite like. Now this mascara is the Giorgio Armani Classico mascara in black. A really gorgeous mascara, I love it. Now, straight ahead for me, darling. What I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to coat the lashes without really getting a lot of density in at the roots. I really want them to just be nice and separated and feathery. Down here. The trick is to have nothing look overly laboured. So just a light flick of black mascara is always great when you're doing something that's French or Parisian inspired. Heavy mascara, save that for another day. More definition and less density with the lashes for this look for me personally. But again, if you're a lash lover, you can always go for it. Okay, so finish the lashes. Now I'm going to move on to the main part of this look, and that's the lip. So I'm going to do a really gorgeous, classic French feeling red. I'm going to use a lipstick from Sunnie's Face, again, the same brand that I'd used for the brusher. And it is called Major, for a major lip. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press the majority of this colour into the centre and not be too fussy about my shape. I just want to get the colour on. I find that when you pat rather than swipe, it gives you a different feeling to the lipstick. Great, just head straight forward. So kind of just like these little feathery strokes. So I'm not worried too much about my shape at the moment. Open your mouth a little bit for me, darling, a bit more. I'm just pressing. So I'm really going to the full parameters here of Lou Jane's lip. I really want to make the most of it. And just do a nice smile as if with no teeth. Yes, beautiful. This is a really good tip to get all of that lower lip. Just a smile with no teeth. You can really see that edge of the lip. I really want to get most of this colour on there. Don't want to leave any part out. And just press your lips together for me, darling. And again. And again. Let you do all the hard work for me. And relax me. So now I'm just going to map out my shape a little bit. Haven't loaded up my brush at all since I initially started putting this colour on. I mean, bonkers, right? Haven't had to load up at all. So again, I'm not really worrying about my shape at the moment. I'm just kind of feeling out where I'm going with this colour. And just sort of shimmying it into the majority of the lip. because I'm going to create a really soft edge. You can do a really sharp edge, a very sort of defined French lip, but there is something about having a soft fuzziness to your edge, which again is that very undone, cool girl, so to speak. So I've got the majority of the colour on, and now I'm going to really smudge out the lip line. And when I say smudge it out, I'm just almost going to blur it a little bit. Now this is a really great little tool. This is a Maybelline, I think this came in an eyeliner actually. And it's got this kind of little sponge. It's a little blender. You usually get these with eyeshadows and eyeshadow quads. But it's an amazing tool for smudging lip edges. So I'm just shimmying this, just shaking it along the edge of the lip, and it just creates instant softness, which I love that I found this. It's like a little blending sponge for your lips. It's like a little mini beauty blender for lips. So you can see there it's getting a really natural soft edge rather than if you were to use a pencil and you'd get a more defined edge. Which is fine, you can do that, it won't really change the whole look, but this is just more of a feeling really. It just gives a little more of a different feel to the look. I also find red lips tend to look quite mean if they're really, really defined. Yeah, beautiful. Kind of just looks like your natural colour. Again, I'm not really overly shaping Lou Jane's lips either. I want this to really look as if it's her natural lip colour, rather than, oh, she's used a lip liner. You really want that kind of run out the door to get to your meeting, a very important French fashion meeting. So I'm going to do exactly the same on the lower lip. Just shimmying that line. Give me a really nice soft at the edges. Beautiful. Straight ahead for me, darling. It's always really good to step back when you're doing lipstick as well to see the shape or the back of my head on camera. So now I've got my basic shape on, I'm just going to add a little bit more colour into the centre of the lip of the same lipstick that I've used, but instead of using that flat brush I'm going to use a fluffy eyeshadow brush. This is an eyeshadow brush Art 3511 from Kryolan, and I'm just going to pop a little bit more into the centre. Just there. So really not focusing on the outer part of the lip at all. This is going to give you that really sort of bitten kind of effect, but really focusing the majority of the colour in the centre part of the mouth, because then you're going to get a really gorgeous gradient of colour, this depth in the centre and then fading into this soft, beautiful, diffused edge, which again is very French. So lips done, and I'm going to move on to brows. Now I'm not going to put anything through Lou Jane's brows because you have the most beautiful shaped eyebrows, look at those. So I'm just going to use a bit of brow gel. This is it's actually called a brow glue from HD Brows. It's amazing. One coat and they will stay there all day, and I mean that. They're absolutely brilliant with their eyebrow products, HD Brows. And this brow glue does not disappoint. Now the reason why I'm not putting anything through Lou Jane's brows, yes, because they are amazing, but two, again, it really plays into that French girl, undone, soft glamour, leaving something free of any makeup. And plus I think if I were to put some colour through Lou Jane's brows, or define them slightly, I think you'd lose some of that freshness. And I always quite like having something that's a little bit undone in a makeup. I think they just gives a bit of realism to it. If everything's painted, then it can start to feel a bit done. That's exactly what we don't want. Straight ahead. So brows done, lips done, blush is looking great. I'm going to add the finishing touches now, and I'm going to use the Baume Essentiel from Chanel. This one's the transparent one. This is a great little highlighter. And I'm just going to pop, close your eyes, my darling, a little bit on Lou Jane's lids. Now this is going to add a glossy texture to her lid. Close your eyes, which is going to ramp up even more that feeling of natural shadow there. Now you can do this with Vaseline, but this Chanel balm tends to last a little bit longer, and it's not as sticky, but it's still got that shininess to it. Open your eyes for me, darling. Yeah, beautiful. Close. I'm just going to take the excess that's on my finger just up into the brow bone, but focusing the majority on the centre part of the lid. Now this is why it's really important that I use that eye cream that's set earlier, because if you put a balm on top of a shadow, then that's naturally going to crease, whereas this balm and that eyeshadow that's set won't fight with one another. And I'm going to take that shadow just onto the cheek. Not shadow, sorry, the balm onto the cheek. Again, really ramping up that freshness. Look straight ahead. Beautiful. Bit on the bridge of the nose. And a tiny, tiny bit on the chin. Just a touch. Okay, so to finish this look, I'm going to use a very minimal amount of powder. Too much powder on the skin will really ruin that freshness that we've got going on in this entire look. So I'm using a really, really fine powder. This is a natural finish powder from Chanel. It's a loose powder and it's in shade 30. It's slightly warm, but I quite like that. Something with a little bit more of a warm peachy tone will just block back some of the redness. Now I'm just really feathering this powder really where I need it to block back unnecessary shine. So right around the corners of the nose, right on the tip of the nose in there as well. Top of the lip, straight ahead. Avoiding where I put that balm, so just under the lip there. Down the sides of the mouth. I'm just going to lightly, just there. So for maximum wearability, I'm going to apply a tiny bit of powder blusher just on the top of that cream, just so that you guys at home can see how to layer product. So I'm not going to use a reddy blush this time, I'm going to use a pink shade, and this shade is called Rose, and it's from a blush trio from Anastasia Beverly Hills, and I'm just going to take that colour there, just in the centre part, just there, and almost really, dare I say, scuff the cheek. So no swirling, because you'll move all that product around, just a little sweep of it, just there, and then just a pat with your finger, just to kind of soften out the edges. Again, you don't want to be too heavy with your blusher, just so it still looks natural, but adding that tiny bit of powder on the top will just increase the wearability of the makeup throughout the day.